Asalamualaikum all, welcome back to my channel. I pray that you are all in the best of health and iman. If you are new, welcome. My name is Nafisa. I am a Muslimah life coach and I support Muslim women with relationship and mental health issues. So if you're interested in being coached in those areas, you can find me over on my website, which I will leave linked in the description box down below. But over here on YouTube, I make Islamic lifestyle as well as dawah content. So if you're interested in that, then definitely make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. So girlies, today's video is going to be on the topic of women and how important it is for us to hold ourselves up and wait until marriage. So without any further ado, let's jump straight into today's video. So we all know that fornication is a major sin in Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, do not go near zina, for indeed it is an evil path. Allah, God, describes fornication as an evil path and he tells us not to go near it. And it falls into the category of the major sins in Islam, which if a person does not seek forgiveness for before they pass away, they will be punished for committing that sin. And in fact, one of the two major reasons why people actually end up in the hellfire, as according to the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is because of their private parts. It's because of the misuse of their private parts that a lot of people will end up in hellfire. Now, this video might seem strange coming at a time where people who are committing zina all over the place are seen as the perfectly normal humans, and the rest of us who are trying to stay away are seen as the weirdos. Despite that, it is still my goal to encourage my fellow Muslims to hold themselves up and wait until marriage, because there is so many benefits of doing so. And of those benefits is the first one that I want to speak about, which is that staying away from committing zina before marriage protects you from the impacts that STDs can have on a woman's fertility. Yes, I read a statistic that says that every year 33 million, you heard that right, 33 million people are diagnosed with some sort of an STD. And in fact, women are far more likely to contract HIV more than men. Because of the anatomy of the woman's body and how it is, it's far more easy for a woman to become infected. Added to that, we have examples of the human papilloma virus, which is a virus that can be passed on through intimate contact between two people. And it can lead women who end up getting this STD to developing cervical cancer. Now, you don't need to be a scientist to know that any form of cancer equals danger, equals your life could be shortened very drastically. On top of that, you have other STDs such as chlamydia and gonorrhea, which can actually end up blocking a woman's fallopian tube and preventing her from being able to have a baby. Now, I really want to emphasize on this point, because in case there is any woman out there who is engaging in these things and she's wanting to actually know the real impact that it can have on her life, let's have a quick science lesson, okay? Let me take you into a little bit of GCSE science here. So the way that a woman gets pregnant is that she is born with all of the eggs that she's ever going to have for the rest of her life. Every girl is born with all the eggs that she will ever have. However, the eggs don't mature until she reaches puberty, and they mature further on every month, and then that egg is released, or maybe two if she ends up having twins, and the egg travels from the ovaries and goes and sits in an area of the woman called the fallopian tube. So the egg leaves the ovary, goes and sits in the fallopian tube, and there it waits for a sperm. So the idea is that a sperm will come along. The sperm knows its way, knows how to travel, because you have chemical signals being pushed out by the egg. So it can attract the sperm, so the sperm can come and fertilize the egg. So ideally, when the sperm comes and fertilizes the egg then gets fertilized, it leaves the fallopian tubes and it goes and settles itself into the woman's womb. And the womb is the area where a baby is now created and grown. And then, of course, the mother gives birth to the child after 9 months, typically. Now, what these diseases, such as chlamydia, can do to a woman is that it can block her fallopian tube. So she can release an egg as per usual. The egg comes in and sits and waits in the fallopian tube, but the fallopian tube is blocked, so a sperm cannot enter. It can't reach the egg because the fallopian tube is blocked. The dangerous thing about some of these STDs is that they don't have any symptoms. So you could have one of these STDs and not even know that you have it because there's no symptoms. It doesn't affect your body in any way. In fact, a lot of women only find out that their fallopian tubes are blocked because of STDs during the time where they start trying to have a baby, and maybe they try after a year or so and they're not able to have a child, and then they go and get checked up, and a lot of them then find that the fallopian tube is blocked. Now, alhamdulillah, there are easy ways to get around this and it can be treated quite easily, but the scary idea is that you can have your fallopian tube blocked and you don't even know that it's blocked, right? And so it affects your ability to be able to have children. And the only way to absolutely protect yourself from getting these diseases is to abstain. Abstinence is better than cure, okay? Yes, we know that there are other things that you can use to protect yourself from these type of diseases, but there is no contraceptive out there, absolutely no contraceptive out there that is 100% protective. It doesnent exist. I don't care what your doctor told you, they lied. There is nothing that is 100%. It will always be the highest you can get is 99 point something percent, but nothing is ever 100%, which means there is always a chance. There is always a chance that you will be exposed to getting some of these diseases. Now, that's not to say that if you're married, that your husband might not contact these diseases from going outside of his marriage and come into the home and affect you. But it just means that as far as your ability is concerned, you're doing the best that you can to protect yourself from being exposed to these things, because you never know who's carrying what. A lot of these diseases, you can't tell the person has it. Like I said, some of these STDs, people don't even have symptoms, okay? So please, for the sake of Allah, remember that when you're keeping yourself pure and you're waiting to be exclusive with your husband in terms of physical intimacy, you're doing the right thing and it is protecting you. Every time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, don't involve yourself in something, it is for your own good, even though we struggle to see it. So this is one of the benefits, is that it protects you from contracting some of these diseases that can end up either killing you by causing cancer or preventing you from being able to have children. So please, girls, keep it closed and save it for your husband. The second benefit of keeping yourself pure until marriage is that it protects you from ending up with unwanted pregnancies. Pregnancy is a very difficult time for most women, okay? No woman will have all of her pregnancy go smoothly. She will go through different stages where some stages are harder than the others. And the difficulty with ending up pregnant with a man who has not committed to you in marriage is that he can just choose to leave. He can just choose to go. I remember in one of my lessons at uni when I was in first year, our lecturer, and if you don't know, I study psychology, our lecturer was saying to us that it really doesn't pay for women, for females, to be sexually promiscuous, because she pays for it more than the guy does, because she has to go through the pain and labor of pregnancy and giving birth. Okay, so when you don't have the commitment of a guy and you let him know that you're pregnant because that mistake happened, he can just choose to keep it going, and you're left to carry the burden now for the rest of your life. Now, if you decide you don't want to have that child and you then decide to take another drastic wrong step, another major sin along the way, I'm sure some of you understand what I mean, you also put your life at risk, because by going through that process of getting rid of that child, you might not be able to have children anymore, right? Because something can go wrong during that process and you might not be able to have kids, or you have to deal with the trauma of what you've actually done. I've heard stories of women who've been through the process of getting rid of pregnancies and they've been literally traumatized by it. So much so that they find it hard to get their heads around being pregnant again and having another child, because they just can't get through what they've actually done to their unborn child, because they couldn't take the shame of having to actually give birth to that child. And on that note, I want to give a message out there to any woman who might find herself in that position. I just want to give you courage to keep your child, because every child is a blessing. Even if it might come through in the wrong way, try your best to do the best that you can to keep the child. But For some who can't, they might choose to go down that route, and that also has its consequences. If you were to get pregnant as a married woman, you would have less of that to deal with. Even if your husband was to say he doesn't want to stay with you anymore and he was to leave, there will still be some level of honor because you got married and you got pregnant for your husband, rather than it being that you got married, you got pregnant for some random guy somewhere else. So it does protect your honor in that sense, and it protects you from having to go through the trauma of having an unwanted pregnancy. And that is the impact that it has on the mother. We haven't even spoken about the impact that it has on the child, because sometimes women do give birth to children that they don't want because they chose to engage in that act, and now they are angry because the father of the child didn't stick around, and so all that anger gets channeled to the child. So the child ends up suffering for something that was never their fault. So everyone experiences a level of loss when we as women don't fight that urge and we end up making those mistakes. Again, if you've already made the mistakes, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive you and get back on the right path. The third benefit of waiting until marriage is that some studies have actually shown that couples who practice abstinence before they got together actually had much more happier marriages, and marriages that were much more stable than couples who engaged in that act before marriage. So what that is showing is that there is a higher likelihood that you'll be happier in your marriages. And I think I was speaking to a man about this not that long ago, and their perspective that they gave me was that for them as men, it gives them more of an ability to trust their wives, so they don't have to worry so much. When you know that your wife is not the promiscuous type, or that even before you married her, she was never that type anyway, it just makes you trust her that much more. So it creates less tension within the marriage, versus if you know that she was kind of like that before marriage, then when certain things come in the way that might suggest that she might be unfaithful, from the male's perspective, he might be much more likely to believe it. So basically, it helps to develop trust between the both of you. If both parties, the man and the woman, practice abstinence before coming into the marriage, chances are their marriages will be a lot more happier and there will be far greater trust. And so the fourth benefit of waiting until marriage is that it raises your honor in front of the man who chooses to marry you. Now, whether a man is religious or not, most men tend to put women into two categories. She's either the type that I'm going to have some fun with, play around with, but I'll never wife her, or she's the wifey material. And amongst the characteristics that most men look for when they're looking for quote unquote wife material is that she is not a promiscuous woman. Okay, and so nowadays, especially where it's very hard to find women who are not promiscuous, when he does find a woman who is protects herself from that type of a lifestyle, it definitely elevates you as a woman and it increases your honor in front of his eyes. Now, you might think, I don't care whether he honors me or not, but for the man that you actually want to marry, you do want him to honor you. You want your honor to be raised in his eyes, because you want to make sure that whatever comes along the way, he won't have doubts about your loyalty and your commitment to that relationship. The next point is that you preserve yourself for the man who actually deserves you. The man who has actually made the commitment to stand by you. The one who is actually agreed before Allah, before your parents and before your family and whoever else witnessed that marriage and now knows that you're a couple. He has made a commitment to provide and protect you. Okay? And that in and of itself is such a blessing. You're giving it to the right person. You're letting the right person have that access to you. Okay? And women, I actually want to mention an interesting finding, which is that when we engage in physical intimacy with others, there is this hormone called oxytocin that gets released. And oxytocin is a hormone that makes you fall in love with someone. It's the same hormone that gets released when a mother breastfeeds her child. That's why mothers are encouraged to breastfeed their children, because it creates a bond, an attachment between the mother and the baby. And so the same hormone gets released when you engage in intimacy with someone. Now imagine you're engaging in physical intimacy with a man who is not your husband, and you somehow think, I'm just having fun for now, I'm not going to fall in love with him, I know he's not husband material, yet you're engaging in that kind of act with him. The end of the day, what's going to happen is that you are going to fall in love with that man. You are. And most likely you as the woman is going to be the first person to get to fall in love with the man, because we tend to be more emotional compared to men. And so you fall in love, but then what if he doesn't hang around? What if he actually ends up not marrying you? Not only did you just commit a major sin, right? There's chances of all the other issues that can come up out of that intimate connection. But now you're in love and he's left you, and so you're heartbroken and you have to actually get over heartbreak. And I know some people say that, if you're dating someone, you're not really suffering, and you break up, you're not really suffering from heartbreak. Actually, you can suffer from real heartbreak from breaking up with someone that you're just dating, because at the end of the day, your brain doesn't distinguish with who you're being intimate with, right? And even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, it's possible that you can love something and it's not good for you, okay? So you can actually truly be in love with the wrong person. And when you break up, that can truly cause you heartbreak. And so you have that emotional trauma to then get over. Please, sisters, if you're not yet married, don't do the deed with the guy. I'm telling you, you're going to fall in love. He's then going to run off. He might not marry you. You're going to have heartbreak to deal with, because every time oxytocin gets released, you get attached. Also on this note, I want to mention the spiritual protection that you get from abstaining from intimacy before marriage. Because when you engage in this act with different groups of men, you don't know their spiritual state. Okay, and when you come together in that way with that type of a person, it does have an impact on you spiritually. It actually really does. A few weeks ago, I was watching a video of a woman who was telling her life story and how she used to work in the industry of, being physically intimate with men. And she said that she became spiritually very ill because one of the ways that the, shayateens can enter into people is during that time. And she engaged with a man who was on the spiritual realm very dangerous, and she ended up contracting a lot of spiritual illnesses that she couldn't explain. She would go to the doctors and they just couldn't explain what was wrong with her. It turns out that she was spiritually possessed and so on and so forth. So guys, we just have to be very, very careful. And that's why during the process of getting to know people, you make istihara, you ask Allah to guide you, you vet people and all of that. You go through all that process to make sure that you're choosing correctly before you get to the point of giving yourself to someone in that way. But when you're just dating someone, or when you just met someone you like the way they look, and then you just open yourself up, you don't know what you're opening yourself up to. Last but most certainly not least benefit of waiting until marriage is that you are able to practice self-restraint. Self-restraint is a quality that most of us struggle with nowadays because we live in such a fast world. Everything is about fulfilling your desires as and when you want it. If you want it, you have the permission to do it. That's the type of dunya that we're living in nowadays. There is no such thing as holding yourself back. There is no such thing as fighting your nafs. We're just living this fast life of, if I want something and there's an opportunity for me to do it, I'm just going to go and do whatever you want. But I'm sorry, in Islam, it just doesn't work like that. This dunya is all about fighting your nafs. It's all about waiting. It's all about fulfilling your needs in the right places and not fulfilling them in the wrong places. So you learn to restrain yourself, because I am not denying the reality that human beings have a need for physical intimacy. We do. It's a need. But some needs you have a level of control over. If we didn't have a level of control, or we couldn't control this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not require us to control it. But because we can have that level of control over it, that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us to have a level of control over it and seek for that intimacy within marriage and not outside of marriage. So it does help you to develop that strength of character, that strength of holding yourself back even when you want something. Please, ladies, make sure you share this video with every woman that you know who is not yet married, because we all need the little boost every now and again to keep us upon the right path. And anyone who has made a mistake, listen, it's not too late. It's never too late. Even if you've had children outside of wedlock, it's never too late. You can always turn it around. Just seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's forgiveness and make a decision from now on that from now on you are a pure woman, and that's how you're going to carry yourself until Allah provides for you your husband. It's an intention that you make and something that you act upon. It's going to be hard, and Allah might begin to test you. Some people might begin to show up that might be looking quite nice, okay? And you're gonna have to be like, you know what? I'm going to remember what I'm about, and I'm going to keep my gaze lowered, and I'm going to keep it moving. I'm going to keep my tone of voice quite firm and stern with these people until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses for me my husband and I am married. So it is never too late. Even if you have made a mistake, you can always turn it around. This is just a message to encourage all of us to remain upon the righteous path. It does pay you to remain upon the righteous path. So I hope this video has been beneficial. If you've enjoyed it, share it and give it a thumbs up as per usual, and inshallah ta'ala I will see you guys in my next video. Assalamualaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.